It takes a day to get to this tropical land from the snow-clad countryside of your home. It is warm as you expected and hoped when the passengers file out of the airplane onto the tarmac. Smells of industry, smoke, moist and rotting foliage, food and jet fuel all mixed to greet you. You're traveling alone. You've set yourself upon a vast plain of uncertainties. Uncertainties for the future. In my life so far, I have moved 31 times, across the oceans, across countries. But when I came to Belize, it seemed a muse had landed on my shoulder. Certain places lend themselves to you wholly, and for me, that place was this little Central American country. If you mention Belize to most people, they will often respond, "Where's that?" Many assume it is a Caribbean island, but it is in fact a part of Central America.
My family origin is Creole on my mother's side, but my dad is Garifuna. Creole and Garifuna mix. So local people put it together as Gio.
My family is Maya, Kekchi Maya, by 100% by birth.
I am a Mennonite because that's just largely the culture that we are. But I'm also a Belizean because that's home.
I came to Belize and found a story. A story of a place, the story of others, and the story of myself. Along the way, I met many expats.
I was born in Barcelona. There must be a reason for me being here. No, I feel like this is home.
My mom is Indian, East Indian, and then I have the African on my father's side.
I worked in London for a while, wearing a three-piece suit, a stiff collar with collar studs.
What was pivotal in my life was when I ran away and joined a Mexican circus, as we all do.
You say, what am I gonna do when old bad guy just catches up with you?
Behind every door was another story. Another person who had the drive to change their life and to risk for a time getting lost. Why do you leave the places you know and love? What are you looking for? And what do you find?
It was so free here. There was nobody checking up on your life at all. You could just live it as you wanted it. And there was no question what I wanted to do. The rest of my professional life was to make nature films. This whole property is covered in old sets that we've used over the years. This whole complex here was built specifically for filming vampire bats.
A film crew came down here and they wanted to imitate Noriega's prison cell. Vampire bats used to come in and bite the prisoners, and so they wanted to simulate that.
I lay down here for about 2 hours and I could feel the bats flying around. Finally, one landed plop on the bunk. And they've got these heat sensors in their noses and they can find where the blood is closest to the surface. And I thought, any minute now, boy, he's going to bite. Sure enough, bim, it didn't hurt much. Then I felt his tongue licking the wound like this. Filming wildlife here is really quite hard in the rainforest because you hardly see the animals, let alone film them. So we had to, whether we liked it or not, build elaborate sets, filming sets, and collect animals. We're building a set here for a species of turtle that occurs here in Belize. It's called the Hickory turtle. Now, they're amazing turtles, these things. They never come out of the water, and except the females will come out to lay their eggs. This will be full of water, and the actual nest for the turtle will be right at this spot here. We go down to the river and we collect up materials, leaves and things like that that you find in the habitat of the turtle. I've had a pretty varied life, I must say. I was born in India, and I just happened to be there at the right age when a French director, Jean Renoir, wanted a boy, and they asked me to be in the film.
Elizabeth. I don't like spelling, I like turtle.
One day you have to learn how to spell. Imagine a man who couldn't go to office and sign letters and read the newspaper.
I don't want to be any of those men.
Bogey's best friend was Kanu. They had a life separate from ours. Bogey didn't like toys. He played with lizards and turtles.
These beautiful skeletons of fig leaves. They're just so beautiful. You know, they're so fine, lace-like things. And I was, I think, 18 and a half, almost 19. I was living in London with some very good friends in my family, and they were looking for somebody to help run a sailing boat that was going to the Galapagos Islands. I had zero experience with boats at all, but I said, sure, I'll try anything, you know. And in those days, there was nobody going there. I spent a total of 9 years there.
You didn't get lonely. I mean, were there possibilities for romance? And
the women on board ship. Yeah.
Just
oh yes,
yeah.
Oh, yes. No, they were. You know, I won't go into that one. Belize, when I came here, it still echoed the Galapagos in its wildness, you know, and that's what really attracted me here.
I came from a little town in Pennsylvania, and all around my home was like forest. And I loved the forest. And I used to bring home snakes and frogs. And a lot of kids do that. A lot of kids like animals. But I never grew out of it.
There's a female tarantula in there. And what she does, the females dig burrows. The males roam. When they find a burrow, they drum. The female knows that's a male coming.
I met Carol very early on in my filming career. I met her down in Panama. She had all the necessary qualifications for joining the film.
Excuse me? Actually, here's a real story. I was in Panama and I was doing research with a lot of different researchers. Here comes a filming person, and we didn't like filming people around because they always bothered us. But then I saw Richard, and Richard was asking me really good questions about, the film. I knew he knew about wildlife, so I accepted him, and then I wanted to start learning more about filming. And he said, do you want to come to Belize? And when I learned about Belize and the different habitats and how beautiful it was, I was there. And I just dropped everything and came to Belize. That's the real story.
What is it that changed in you as you decided to make your move? You vacillated over and over between staying and going. Fear, loneliness, uncertainty can keep you from being in this place you have now chosen. Perhaps you've left family or children behind. How could you leave them, people might ask. How could you leave them, you wonder daily.
I don't have all the colors that you need.
Yeah, but
I have some in the same container. So if I went to the fortune teller and she said, you're going to end up marrying this guy in a small maroon village in Central America, and you're going to have a family, and you're going to be somewhat respected in the town that you live in, I would have demanded my $5 back, right? Because I would have been like, you're crazy. That's not going to be me. Yeah, so about 22 years ago, I was hopping freight trains in the States, dumpster diving in Minneapolis. And while I was hopping freight trains, I met this woman who has land here in Belize. And I didn't even know where it was. And it just sounded great.
What got you to the place where you were riding around on train cars and digging out of dumpster dumps? Do you mind talking about that? I mean, that's really,
that was
the end of the line for a lot of people, but not you, obviously.
No, that was just the beginning. I used to live in my car because I had a job and everything. And I lived in a 74 Cadillac hearse, of all things. So people used to leave notes under my windshield wiper if they were trying to find me or something. So I'd come back and say, hey, I stopped by and, left a note. And this guy was, somehow he mentioned, I was like, oh, well, I live in my car. And he was like, oh, are you homeless? And I'm like, no, I live in my car. The guy was like feeling so sorry for me. I'm like, no, I'm cool. I chose that. I chose it. I guess I just wasn't bound by what I was supposed to do or what society was telling me to do. And I just kind of did what I wanted to do. And then you meet other people like that too, so then it becomes very normal. It's not, it's such a nice relief and break to be with people that also hop freight trains and dumpster dive or whatever. Everybody wants the same thing, We just do it differently. There's different artists, there's different, but not everybody paints the same picture. but it's still a fish. We all want the same thing.
I was born in St. Lucia in a small fishing village called Canaries. That's a big one. I became one of top 3 students in my village. My intention was to study medicine, to become a medical doctor. It was 3 of us, but the principal gave the 2 the scholarship. He never gave me my opportunity, not giving me the scholarship. So I was like so pissed off, I never went back to that. So I decided to learn skills. You want to open it or you gonna?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, at the age of 12, every afternoon after school, I would help my uncle because he was a plumber. And then by the age of 14, I was the plumber for the district and then doing plumbing in the village. So that's how I started my life. That's the water.
Yes, Rasta. Say don't worry about it. 'Cause every little thing is gonna be alright.
When I came to Belize, the restaurant was never in my dream. When I opened the restaurant at the time was because I was a vegan and I wanted to introduce vegan and vegetarianism in the country. In fact, in the entire Central America. So the idea was to promote, you know, like holistic living. And then coming to Belize gave me that opportunity, like you might want to say.
But you said at one point that you went away to the jungle to live in the jungle.
Yeah, I did that when I was 17. I just got tired of society. It was just like getting a fight down from society. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to walk away from society. I gave my brother all my tools, and then I took off. But it was also a learning experience for me too, seeing that you could do without relying on the society. And then the idea was to cook in a clay pot, drink water from the spring, and all my utensils were made out of wood. Yeah. So that shows me that if Babylon falls, I can survive. I did that for 7 years.
You didn't have like this really conscious choice about coming here. You met your friend, the woman who was your partner.
Yeah. We both had the same vision. So her thing was to come here. She had already been here before. And then we would do like a homestead, you know, where we would be doing farming and I would be growing my own food and stuff like that. But when she died, you know, that kind of like changed a little bit because she was hit by a drunk driver on the highway. When I became a Rastafarian, I was looking for a new name, which would be only me carrying the name. I decided, well, the gomye is a tree at home we use to make dugouts. And it's a very solid wood, it's very hard, and it grows on a cliff. I decided to take an M out and make my name, which is gomye. Because we were born or created in the image and likeness of the Creator. I would say Jah instead of God. We are like a tree planted by the rivers of waters that bear seeds of fruits in due season. I got 2 girls and a boy. So that's one of the reasons why I'm gonna end up staying here. And I would like to spend the rest of my life with them. So to show them that, you know, I'll be there for them.
You came hoping for a muse, those things often camouflaged until you learn how to see them. You are learning to be quiet in order to see the things you seek. Certain only of the uncertainty. You're willing to get lost.
We arrived on a Sunday. I always remember it was raining and Belize City is dead on a Sunday. And in 1977, it was super dead. We had no preconceived ideas of what Belize was. I hadn't actually any idea what Belize was like, other than it was a third world country and had been a colony. I remember going to a travel agent and trying to find out about Belize, and they suggested I call the Foreign Office. I was born and raised in the UK, and then I left and went to Africa. And then after 3 years in Kenya, moved back to the UK, and then realized, man, I don't know, life was very different. It just wasn't really that exciting, you know. It was, and you know, when I'd been living the last 6 years, it was very exciting. And it's kind of interesting because you always think that you should have an idea of what you wanted to do in your life. Well, I didn't have any particular sort of thing which I was really interested in. I just liked this kind of wild living.
It was a fabulous time just to be alive because it was our time. It was the peace and love generation's time and the flower children's time. We had a ton of freedom. I believe that we were born at a very important time, and I believe that we were able to really make change. Like most young people, I was very involved politically, and of course we had the Vietnam War going on. And I found it difficult to remain in my country, and so I became a conscientious objector. And I left to study in London and ended up going down to Kent to pick apples, where I met my husband, Mick.
Lucy and I met apple picking in Kent just after I had come back from Africa. We cut the grass, we bring it back here, we mix it with sawdust from the stables, and that all gets turned into compost. So what's that at, 120? But I mean, if you feel the temperature there, it's pretty much the same as it.
Hey.
So this is all horse manure. Those are worms. Those are the California red worms. In those days, we just traveled, you know, but we always traveled and worked.
We ended up deciding to travel to Belize together. In fact, this is where our stories probably divert a little bit, because I thought we were going to South America because that's where our skills would have been used. I taught English as a foreign language, which I couldn't do in England or in any English-speaking country.
Did you drive down?
No. We caught a Greyhound bus from Boston. We went all the way down the East Coast, right the way down to Miami. So frankly, I don't know. We just came down here to, to look for something to do, and we weren't thinking this is going to be home.
Our intention was to stay for a while and then head south. But when we arrived in Belize, there was something that held us here, and I don't know quite what it was. I mean, there was the matter of it being a little bit like Africa in terms of the mix of people, and we were free to do whatever we wanted. Mick took a job picking beans.
On the way back from that job, we ran into this English guy who actually owned this property here. And if we wanted to come and grow veggies up here, he'd rent it to us for $300 a year. And it progressed pretty slowly because, I mean, all I had was a shovel and a spade and a rake and a machete. And there was just nothing dug here at all. We didn't have a vehicle for 7 years. So our transport was either by dugout, canoe, and the first year we didn't have an outboard, so we used to paddle from here to town.
No road.
No road. No
electricity,
road.
obviously.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, nothing. No, nothing. It was just raw living. Whatever vegetables we had, we would only go down once a week on a Saturday, which was when market day was in town. Take down whatever we had, and then we normally used to buy a bottle of a one-barrel rum to get back up the river again. But it was that was a sweat. Yeah, but that's how it was. Yeah. And if we didn't go by them, then we went in on horseback. We had one horse, so. I never, ever wanted to go back because I didn't know what I would be able to do. That's what I was running away from in the first place, was not so much civilization, but just, what am I going to do? Lucy, I don't think, was particularly enamored with the farming side of things, and I think there were times when she thought, what the hell are we doing down here?
Loneliness, despair, questioning oneself about what we were doing. We weren't able to do anything but sustenance.
We were living on 15, 20 Belize dollars a week, with 2 children. It was rough. You could never, ever seem to get ahead.
Hi, Panama. Panama is a very important ambassador for harpy eagles. All right. They're considered, in some of the literature, they're considered to be extinct in Central America. One of the reasons they're so rare is because people are afraid of them, but they are just the most wonderful, pleasant birds. I've always had a strong attraction to wildlife, which was hard when you're living in Baltimore. It's not exactly teeming with biodiversity. After school one day, I saw this ad in the paper that said, girls wanted as dancers in a Mexican circus. I don't know what's going to happen.
Sketchy.
Yeah. And I became the lion tamer in this circus as well as dancing for a year.
And without really any background.
If you have the whip and you know how to crack the whip, you can be a lion. You could do it. You could be a lion tamer.
I could.
Yeah, if you know how to crack a whip. They're already trained.
Yes,
They just respond to certain cues. Alex, Julia, do you have to clap for him. Do you believe your eyes? That boy can now lit up. I don't believe it. What a guy! His mother was a sheep killer. Yes, she was. Don't tell me she wasn't. Of course she did. And so she was pregnant when we saved her. That's how we got him. Yeah. What a guy! What a guy! I was going through this really hard time in my life. Should I go back to graduate school? Well, after you spend a year in a circus, going back to graduate school isn't real high on your list. And it didn't feel right. And during that confusion, I got a letter in the mail from Belize. It had a return plane ticket. It was from a man named Richard Foster. He said, look, I know you don't know me. I don't know you. I'm in desperate need of a film assistant. Enclosed, please find a round-trip ticket to Belize. You have nothing to lose. Put all my stuff in storage, and that's how I got here.
Oh, that's a great story. I want somebody to send me a letter like that.
So I was called and asked if I wanted this baby crocodile. I said, wow, you know what? I don't know anybody. I did a little research. I found no one who's raised an American crocodile from a baby. You want to give her a snout stroke? Sure. She's very sensitive to being touched. The raccoon relative here is the Coatamundi. What they like is scent. They like to rub any scent into their skin, and that's how they communicate. In the wild, they use flowers, they use smelly things, and that's how the troop stays together. Their favorite scent is Bodman. It's cheap perfume. I mean, it smells awful. We completed Richard Foster's documentary, and something happened where they shot Richard off to Borneo, and I was left in charge of the animals. And there was no money. Richard's gone. I need to feed the animals. I'm not going to get rid of any. They're my friends. Now, Richard, being a wonderful person, had a little bit of following. So they thought a jolly good outing was to go to Richard's place and see his little animal collection. And who would have to show them around? Me. So I thought, okay, you know what? They're going to have to pay now. And it became something people would do on the weekend.
Hey, Bobby.
Mr. Top Predator. Closer, warm, warm. Come on, you can find it. Oh, for God's sake.
What about your family? How did they feel about these endeavors?
Total rejection. They weren't exactly signed on to this career move. But, you know, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Follow your heart.
Yeah, well, you're lucky enough to have known what that path was,
Yeah.
you know. In this foreign land, on the endlessly varying earth, you abandoned your former self. You awaken to the smells, sounds, sensations of this place, changing, morphing, growing before all your senses. For a brief time, you forget about your life in all its permutations.
I let me, man. You just give me a call while he text anything and we'll set up something.
Yes, man. You don't know, I don't for whatever.
You know how we hang, how we does it?
Yeah.
The Creole came about because the slave interact with the British. That's why we talk broken English. That's the way our Creole came around, because we try to speak like the English people. And ever since.
We both have the same languages, like, you know, Polos. We could both understand each other. And I raised up with my grandmother. And whenever she talks to me in Garifuna. We start to pick up the little Garifuna. But it was very hard. We understand it, but to speak it, it's hard for us.
Yeah.
My dad's, he's from St. Bite village. He was the first person in that village. First person, and he find his girlfriend there. And half of that village is my family.
Is your dad's kid?
Yeah. Yes, it's for
Excellent.
real. It's for real.
Okay, all right. How many kids did he have?
Tell
the truth.
I would have said like 19 to 20. Very huge family.
Okay.
And Polo is my friend from when we was like almost like 8 to 9 years old, or even before that. Like, yeah, he's my brother from another mother. That's what we call ourselves.
Yeah.
Good. And he respects me, and I respect him as his religion.
Rastafarian, there's a lot of things behind it. You live biblical, you live by the Bible, you live in peace with people, you respect people. There's so many type of mixed culture.
Right, right.
And the most part around here, it's like you give respect, you get
back respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very loving, peaceful. No one disrespect. No one, regardless what culture, what color you are.
We all cooperate together.
Yeah.
We all cooperate.
This house was pre-cut in England and brought over here by an Englishman. And my grandfather came out here to work for him and bought this property from him. So then it just went down the ladder from my granddad to my grandma, my mother-in-law, myself. It was completed in 1865.
So just about the time that the Civil War
Yes. And
ended.
the families that came down here, they just got out of the U.S. like a lot of other Americans did, you know, Southerners, because they had lost the battle. And probably just wanted to get out of the whole area, you know. And they came to Belize. Why Belize, I don't know. It was a British colony, but there were just as many black folks around as there were over in the U.S., so. My dad was a young American who came out here to work in the mahogany camp. But he also was a Southerner, and as long as the old boy didn't have too many drinks in him, he was all right with the blacks. I was born in Punta Gorda. I lived here all my life, practically. It was extremely hard for me going over to the U.S., spending my weekends in Gulfport, Long Beach, Mississippi. I was so used to associating with black folks, you know, and over there were back door. You know, I have no interest in going back to the U.S. I am quite happy in my peaceful little Punta Gorda.
All right, here you go.
We Mennonites have kept ourselves separated. We don't have any neighbors that aren't Mennonite. We have our area and we don't sell to outsiders, and other nationalities. And so we're different in that way because we develop our own communities like that. We've carried the German language with us till this day. Ja, ik woon hier met mijn mama toe. En ik had 2 broers en 2 zusters. 2 broers en 1 zuster wonen hier dichtbij met haar kinderen en toe. En 1 zuster woont in Canada met haar familie toe. Here you have dates and list of family names of when these Mennonite families arrived in Belize. So March 14, 1958 was the first group, which my mom was part of that group. Only the men's names.
I was 10 years when we came. We traveled 10 days, bus, train, and a big truck through the jungle, 12 hours. With no water. And my husband's father got very depressed because he pushed it very much to move to Belize. And when he saw how hard it was, he started to feel bad and guilty because that would be his fault when people would die for hunger. But I remember my parents talked from, will we make it? Would we have enough money before we earn money? I remember they talked from that, yeah.
Mennonites have a relentless work ethic if you're a true Mennonite. And that will reflect, if you look at our community, we came to Belize with almost nothing. And what we produced here, we did it ourselves, right? In '48, they moved from Manitoba, Canada to Mexico, and then they stayed in Mexico 10 years, and then they moved to Belize.
They wanted the greenness of this land, like the tropics looked inviting to them, and farming was big for them. And also always wanting a kind of a quiet place, because they were pacifists and they were always scared of being drafted into army and stuff. And language was a big thing back then. Like, I think they were feeling threatened that they needed to switch over to English in Canada. So I think that was one of the reasons that they're like, okay, we need to, separate ourselves a little further.
I see a day when we're going to get into trouble because of our isolation, right? To me, it's very important that we integrate, that we learn to live with each other. I mean, I'm involved in the business side, and I interact with the common Belizean person every day of the year, basically. So I would like to see us welcome members into this community, not based upon the color of their skin, but based on the content of their character. It's something that we have to work on. We are Belizeans, and we will need to make sure that we get along and also integrate a little bit more with our other Belizean brothers and sisters.
No, there's definitely still, like, the man has the say, and, well, let's say if there's a community meeting where all taxpayers are invited, I'm a taxpayer. And if I show up for that meeting, I very likely will be the only woman who shows up. So that kind of gives you a picture of where things are at.
Well, you see, that's where I'm not so Mennonite. Okay. I think that there should be very little difference between a man and a woman. Alvina and I, we would see most things eye to eye.
I don't allow it to confine me and define me. So, and I think I kind of enjoy, irritating the system a bit.
Good for you.
I am Belizean. I've never lived anywhere else. So, I mean, I was born here, I was raised here. The longest that I've left is for 3 weeks, so.
Well, I think myself as Canadian. Okay. I don't know what otherwise.
I love the diversity and all these different cultures all around me, and just, yeah, the uniqueness of this little country. It's home.
I think that's the beauty of Belize, that it's not easily defined, you know.
Supposedly, is it the Belizean flag is the only flag where there are people on the flag?
That is correct, yeah. Do you know what it says there? Do you know what it means?
Sub umbra floreon.
Under the shade we flourish.
Under the shade we flourish.
The most important thing we could think of is that if we sit under the tree, we flourish, you know?
During this time away, you think of the things you could bring home, if that place is still your home. The stories you might share, the more complete version of yourself that you might hold on to. You, like many others, may remain an outsider, no matter how long you stay. Will you go home?
But you leave San Ignacio and you just go into this gorgeous, gorgeous river. And we used to bring everybody in by dugout. We had people kind of rolling through. Friends of Lucy's come to stay with us in our little funky little house. They loved it. They thought it was the cat's whiskers, and they'd send other people down. It was costing us. People say, "Oh, we thought so-and-so and so-and-so said you'd love to see us," or, you know, and you, yes, we do, but I mean, we're trying to survive, and we didn't tell people that. We said, listen, if people wanted to come, you know, then maybe we'll build a little place and we can charge them something.
It was kind of a crazy idea. Mick and I had a big argument over about, he wanted to move into chickens and poultry, staying with the farming theme. I said, well, why don't we do something with this tourism thing? I really think we can do something. So he actually embraced it.
Nobody was doing this kind of tourism at all. We had birds, we had lovely rivers, we had forests, we had, you know, things which I thought people would like. How often do people actually really get to see the true jungle? You know, everybody thought we were nuts. You know, what are these two hippies doing down here? You know, what do they think? We have chaya, we have eggplant, we have basil. The only thing with this drip system is that the bottom end always stays too wet and the top end stays too dry. They should have been run across the hill with the lay of the land.
We had a number of Europeans who came. We got on the backpackers trail, and people heard, oh, there's this British-American couple living back there farming. If you go and help them, you can stay there. And so we built the cottage ourselves. In fact, his parents helped dig the foundations. Pole construction, stick walls, thatched roof, dirt floor. And we advertised it at the candy shop in town and at the post office. And basically, people came.
And that's how Shark Creek, you know, started off.
One of the things that kept us here, I think, is that we had very few options. We had left our societies, and so we couldn't, like, go anywhere and just slot back in.
Well, I mean, our life has been one of integration. I mean, you know, we never had anything when we came here. You know, whatever we have made here has been made with what Belize had to offer. We didn't import any skills or anything else from outside. But even now, 40 years later, or 39 years, it's still a challenge sometimes when you meet someone, whether they be in the police force or in government offices. You know, here they got this white boy sitting in front of them. You know, we're really going to fuck with this guy. You know, we want to see how much patience he has. But to me, I'm living in somebody else's country, so I have no problem with it. I always look back to the way that English used to treat, you know, the Pakistanis and the West Indians when they first came into the country and some things. I mean, people were just downright rude to them. So, you know, if we can do that to other people, then I have no problem in having to face the same kind of consequences myself. And it's rather nice when you have no qualifications and you suddenly find something which you really find is just dead cool. You know, I mean, and we were doing all sorts of interesting things.
We created everything truly through blood, sweat, and tears. And when you put that much of yourself into your project, into your land, and into what you're doing, it's hard to leave yourself behind, isn't it?
Sooner or later in your life, we all have to make that decision about what we want to do, where we want to do it, how we might be able to do it, and we never know whether it's going to be a success or not.
This is our national animal. When they're babies, they look so adorable.
Babies are amazing. Look like little deer.
It's the animal that made me really understand the need for the zoo. Do you know how many people, I got so tired of hearing, why do you want to save that animal anyway? Do you know they're dangerous? They're dangerous, why? Because they can skin you alive with their nose. And I mean, everybody believed it. From the top of government to the smallest kid. I thought, how is that going to help an endangered species? There's no sweeter animal and no more important animal to a rainforest as a seed disperser than a tapir. So that kind of got me thinking that we need a wildlife education center. Started the zoo January 10th, 1983. All Belizean animals are all rescue animals. They're all animals that would not probably be alive if it weren't for this zoo. They've been in small cages, they've been mistreated, they've been fed wrong, especially monkeys, and they all have different demented personalities. And the big challenge is turning them into monkeys.
You want a peanut bud?
Primatologists told me that when they scratch like that, it's indicative of self-conscious behavior, that they know they're being talked about. What amazed me was, over not that long a period of time, Belizeans started coming. And I still didn't get it. Why are these people coming here to see these ratty cages, a few animals? One late afternoon, this grizzled Belizean guy shows up at the gate and he says, "Is this where you come to see the animals?" And I thought, oh. And I was dead tired. But there's no way I'm turning him away. And every animal he saw, he had a tale about. The anteater was extremely dangerous because it could jam its tongue up the nose of your dog and suck out its brain. And I remember going into the house and getting a notepad because I wanted to write these myths down. People believe barn owls are the bird of death, evil, and misery. And unfortunately, they're usually killed on sight. And they don't hoot, they screech, and they fly at night, and they're ghost-like. What a terrible myth for an animal that eats more rats and mice than any animal on the planet. And then we got to the jaguars, and they were rolling around in the sunlight. This guy broke down and cried right in front of me. I said, "What's wrong?" And he picked up his head and he looked at me and he said, I've lived in Belize my whole life, and this is the first time I've seen the animals of my country. That's when my life changed. And I just put all my energy into it, and I thought, this country needs this zoo.
Yeah.
And everybody thought, of course, I'm crazy, I'm this. I had no support from anybody. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and no regrets. And that's how it started. It's a disease that's worse than your worst detritus. That infection without affection, we call it old bag-itis. Now, old bag-itis catches up with you. One day you're a babe, the next you're a shrew. You look in the mirror and you say, what am I going to do when old bag-itis catches up with you? It's the sprinkles of wrinkles in the corner of your mouth. You squint to read the finer print, your tits start pointing south. You look in the mirror and you say, what am I going to do when old bag-itis catches up with you? That's right, when old bag-itis catches up with you. When old bag-itis catches up with you.
Fabulous.
Okay, good.
I love it.
Sign me
I
up.
love it. You're definitely signing you up.
Where's he going?
He's coming over to see you. Hi, George.
Hello.
You are so pretty. Yes, you are.
So pretty.
The scarlet macaw should have a good future, or a healthy future, not an endangered future. There's less than 1,000 left due to the alteration and destruction of habitat. All right, George, thanks, bud. Good boy, too. I was hoping to find a meaningful life, assisting endangered species, opening people's minds to the need to save the rainforest. I'm the zoo lady.
Come on, you guys.
Look at how they're coasting over.
Oh, hello, madam. You're there. And where the big boy is.
Have you seen the baby in a while? See how much he's
there he is.
grown.
Oh, look, he's got the foot.
Yeah.
Look at that. You're not going to be able to eat that. No, big boy's coming along now. He's coming. This is what they do. They go down, and then they suddenly appear in front of you. No shine, no ripples, nothing. You know? The big fellow, 30 years ago, was about 3 feet long. People all over the country knew we had a collection of animals. It was the dry season, and this guy knew it would die otherwise, and he said, do you want a croc? There you go, guys. Situation. Officially, I'm Belizean British. You know, I have dual passports, but I don't know. I've been out of civilization, if you like, and the constraints of civilization for so long. I really think of myself as a citizen of the planet, really, not as being a member of any particular social human group. Big male was a star. Happened to be watching National Geographic Wild, and there was a series about cats.
It could be easily mistaken for a very large house cat.
Margay cats in Central America, and how incredibly well adapted they are for jumping and leaping. And then, hey presto, there was our cat. No. It's essential they have freshly killed prey. You know, this is also an excellent tool to get him to move around and control him when we're filming him. Okay, right, come on. Off he goes. I live out here so close to nature. Both of Carol and I, we're acutely conscious of climate change, you know, and we see things changing around us. The environment here is really under siege.
We're at the point where pockets of really important reserves are going for sugar cane, for corn, for oil. They find oil here. And so that's going to destroy the country. That is going to destroy the country. And it's in every habitat now. I asked scientists, why do you come down here? Because we're losing everything. He says, because you still have something that we can hook onto and maybe try to save.
We need to get back in balance with our environment somehow or other. So what we do now, we do a number of small conservation films, and the idea is to show them on local TV and try and help the situation in the country. We are trying to help the country that's given us a heck of a lot over the years.
Oh, this is great. This is the way I get around the property. When they did Wild Passions, they interviewed us and showed us doing the anaconda film in Venezuela.
The Fosters faced a much more serious threat than the anacondas.
I felt my legs kind of get weak, and from my lower back up, I had a really bad pain, and then I lost my legs. I told them, I need to get medevac out of here.
So, okay, Frank, you got it.
I was scared, but not scared, because I figured, oh, we're figuring out what's wrong with me. And they think that was the start of MS.
So what do we do? Are we going to do end takes?
First, let him do this, and then we'll do a front take, and then we'll ask him questions.
They go, where do you want to go? I'm going back. Going back into the field. I started this film. I'm going to end it. Forward!
Yeah, right hand. I don't know what the future holds now. For us, like health issues, and with Carol, there's no cure for MS, so we have no idea what the future holds for that.
What do you got in your mouth?
A mango.
Give me that. Come here.
The last thing I want to end up doing is, rotting away in some home.
Right.
I would far rather some heavy weight hit me on the back of the head when I'm not looking, and that was it. Bong, finish. That's what I fall off a cliff. A couple of seconds panic, and that's it.
Departure is perhaps a summation of life's perpetual flux, encapsulated within one task, that of leaving. Amidst all the time passing, the lives that made you, the histories inherited, you are left with the same necessities of those who constitute your past. Survive, fill days, make your loves last, regenerate with the spring, thrive. You are left legacies. You will perhaps leave legacies. But it is the places and people you leave, sometimes just as you are leaving, that show you their truest, most memorable beauty. You discover this parting grace as you take your leave.